We're going to go now. Okay. It says we're live. All right. Well, thank you everybody for tuning in today. My name's Jackie and I'm from the American Society of Positive Care for Children. And this is our first episode of our new weekly show. And today I am so excited to introduce you to Mary Wheatley. Mary is the founder of Inspired Parent Coach. She coaches parents to become the optimal parent for their children and encourages them to see parenting as an experience to grow and learn from. She enjoys co-creating solutions with parents and helps them overcome the immense challenges they face in today's chaotic world. Mary, thank you so much for coming on and being our guest.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm really excited to to be a part of this program and to actually follow it as it unfolds down the line. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's wonderful what you're doing.
Thank you. Yeah, we started this series because we wanted to start talking to parents more about positive parenting, especially during COVID, because there's such a need, and you have such a presence with your audience now. So you were definitely like one of our top picks.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
So tell us a little bit more about Inspired Parent Coach. How did you get your business started? Like where did that begin?
Well, I was in the design field for quite some time, for all of my life, actually. And then I decided to go back to grad school. And having raised my children at that point, they were getting ready for college themselves. But I always had this kind of my first college experience took me into early childhood development, which I didn't stick with. I wound up moving away from it, and I ventured into my creative endeavors. Anyway, 30 years later, I decided I had this nagging something within me to better life for children, because there was so much suffering and, things that were going on for kids that they were bringing out into the world that were causing suffering between children. So I found this beautiful program through Seattle Pacific University. It's a graduate program. And from there, I was very much aligned with the premise of, they don't dub it this way, but I do, conscious parenting. And it really spoke to my heart as far as how I believe parents would benefit their children and themselves by showing up to their parenting with much more self-awareness and what's causing them to behave the way they behave, what's causing them to react the way they react, what's good in that, what maybe would benefit from modification. And most importantly, allowing your children to teach you how to parent them based on who they are. So that was something that really spoke to my heart, and I really felt like I could be of benefit to parents in inviting them into this kind of new, well, I don't want to say new, but a fresh paradigm of parenting. I wish I had it when I was a younger parent. I would have been a far different parent than I am today. So anyway, so that's kind of the background story to Inspired Parent Coach. And I don't know what more you need from that, but I'll leave it there.
Yeah, no, that's a great story. So how old are your kids?
They're young adults now. Yeah, they're in their mid-20s. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Wow. And it's so crazy to think about like how parenting has shifted just like in the last few decades even. But now we're like in absolutely new waters this year because of COVID.
Yeah.
Can you tell?
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I was just going to ask your opinion, like what kind of impact have you seen on families because of COVID or just the stress of this year?
Yeah, stress. Yeah, stress, and more stress. Last year, parents and all of us were invited into this uncharted territory. Nobody knew what was happening from one moment to the next, one day to the next. And parents had this double-edged sword where all of a sudden they became teachers and lunch ladies and counselors and, sports coaches. They had to take on every role that there was that they were used to fielding out to others, right? And now all of a sudden they're home, they're working full time, they have their laptop in front of them, and then they have their kids and all the responsibility of taking their kids during the day. Stress level through the roof. So there was an invitation, a beautiful invitation here, through that chaos, through that event that we're still living through, and there's still an invitation here for parents to reset the dynamic of their parenting experience, to reset their relationship with their kids. Because in so many ways, in the past, prior to COVID, we were able to farm our kids out to sporting events, to birthday parties, to to anything and everything that kept the wheels turning. And as parents, we're always running around from one place to the next. Now all of a sudden, everybody has to sit still, right? They have to be in this one enclosed environment with the stay-at-home order in place that has obviously since been lifted. But at the most intense time, parents' stress level was really through the roof because they didn't know how to navigate these uncharted waters, right? So now that we're 7 months into this and we're back to school, there's an invitation for parents to look at what worked for them when they were shooting from the hip last March, right? And bring that into the experience that they have now with their kids at home back to school. So, and I'm going to, if it's okay with you, I'd love to give you a couple of suggestions how they can maybe give themselves some stress relief right out of the gate. I mean, some parents and families have already started back to school, and maybe they've already engaged in some of these suggestions. But for those who maybe are looking for a little bit more of a pathway to relieving stress during COVID and having kids at home, I'd love to give you a couple of ideas. Is that okay?
Yeah, please.
Oh, cool.
Can I get all of the tips?
Yeah. Okay. So, setting regular bedtime hours, absolutely critical. And I think parents are pretty much tuned into that, but also setting wake up hours, because what happens when the kids are home and you don't have to get them to a school bus, or you don't have to get them to the school at a certain time, and get kind of lax in the morning about routine. And I think it's really, really important to create that sleep routine. Go to bed at a certain hour, wake up at a certain hour, have your breakfast, dress for school, very important. Don't go to school, don't go into your day still in your jammies. And I know, dressing down a little bit in, sweatpants and things like that is something that we've all gotten used to, yoga pants and stuff like that during the day. But I think that setting that tone that now we're moving away from home time to learning time and work time, really important for parents, because then even if you put a little bit of makeup on, mom, and you sit in front of your computer, you're telling your kids that you're setting yourself up for your day to get serious with what responsibilities you have in your day. So you're mentoring for them so that they can get serious about the responsibilities in their day, which in this case will be learning. I also think very, very important is the scheduling of learning times, break times, and lunch times. Be very consistent with that. Prepare meals ahead of time, make sandwiches ahead of time so that you can kind of stay in that flow and make your day go easier without having to scramble, come away from your work to make lunch, don't have enough of whatever you need in the refrigerator, and then it just adds more stress to your day. So prepare in advance for the meal time, the break time with the kids, the snacks and things like that. Set a schedule, literally set a schedule. Bring the kids into scheduling their time with you. Ask them to help you with snack time and lunch time. Engage them in the process of this home learning. And I think that will relieve a lot of stress, and it'll also give the kids a little bit more, I want to say a little bit more skin in the game, so that they'll help you through your day. Scheduling online education time, absolutely imperative. And they may not have the opportunity to manipulate that time. You may have to be very consistent with working with the schools and what time you set that into your week, right? And then other things, schedule an exercise and social contact with for your kids and for yourself. So you might do like masked meetups, like once a week or once every other week. And depending on where you live and what's going on is, you're going to meet in the park. I would say be outside and take the kids to some outdoor event, get some sort of a towel for the ground, sit on the ground with your mask, have a mask meetup, let the kids interact with their friends for an hour or so, away from social media, one-to-one, and give the stress relief to the kids as well as yourself by, it's still nice weather. We're into the fall here in the United States. So, take advantage of that. It doesn't have to be every day, but make it a part of your routine. Okay, today is mass meetup day. We're going to go so-and-so and whatever. And you have multiple children, you may have to be considerate of one child at a time. Okay, so you create these happenings according to what your family dynamic is. And then allow for downtime, allow for that rest time. I remember personally when I was a child going to school, we used to every once in a while just put our heads down on the desk and just take this little, what we used to call a cat nap. I know I'm aging myself, but when you put your head down on the desk and you just tune out for about 5 minutes, 10 minutes, that's a wonderful reset to your day. And you can weave that into any part of the day when you're transitioning from learning to lunch or after lunch, wherever you think that your children and yourself would actually benefit from a little bit of downtime. So I would say just be consistent during the course of the week. Every day you want your kids to be able to count on this routine so that you can count on the routine as well. If you have a husband or a partner who's working at home with you, what you might want to do is you might want to switch off between working with the kids one day and the other focusing on work and then switching it. And I think that that's kind of a good dynamic as well, because some parents are stronger at some subject matters than others. And it gives the kids a little bit of variety in their learning, and they know what parent they can count on for what learning activities. And again, engage the kids, engage yourself, engage the entire family in setting this schedule. And I think you'll be setting yourself up for a win-win. And then very, very important, give yourself permission not to get it all done, because there is a lot being asked of parents right now. And to this point, I want to applaud all you parents who have been stepping up to the plate in the most positive of ways and really giving so selflessly of yourselves. I mean, honestly, it's not going unnoticed. So I want to thank you for that. And on behalf of your children and on behalf of everyone else, I think that you're doing an amazing job and an incredible job. But give yourself permission to not get it all done. I think that that's really important.
Yeah. And I think that's so important to remind ourselves of, especially in our culture, we don't have that much of a community anymore. And now in isolation, all of it is on top of us, to do it all. And we feel like we have to do it perfectly. So I love your tips about the scheduling and the routines and giving your kids some variety as well, because they're also feeling the stress. They're also feeling the changes. So thank you so much for those resources. I did want to ask too, you've been coaching parents for quite some time now. Can you tell us what are some of the biggest hurdles you see parents and kids facing right now during this time?
Well, like you said, isolation is really, really big. So what do you do with that isolation? You have to get really creative, right? So in order to, and I know even for myself, and I live here in Hawaii, and you would think that that's amazing and wonderful, and it is a beautiful environment to live in, but there's a lot of isolation here because we live in this little bubble. So homes have become little bubbles. So what you have to do, or what I would suggest that parents and families do, is look for ways to ease the boredom and alleviate those feelings of isolation. Well, how do you do that? You have to what's the word I'm looking for here? Interact with the people who are closest to you. So if you live in a multifamily household, you can engage grandma and grandpa, you can engage auntie, uncle, you can engage cousin, whoever lives with you. There's a couple of things that you might be able to do. And again, I'd love to give you a couple of ideas on how you can capitalize on the time that's spent at home to alleviate these feelings of isolation. Would that be all right?
Yes, please.
Okay. She's like, yeah. Okay. Okay. So one of the first things is that for a parent in the beginning of their day is to practice mindfulness. So in practicing mindfulness, you're going to set the intention for the day and stay really present. So when you're feeling under the gun and you're feeling overworked or pulled but in too many different directions during the day, be really present to how you're feeling and be really honest with how you're feeling with yourself first and foremost. I'm feeling really frustrated in this moment. This is getting to be too much for me. I need to take a break. You know what? It's okay if you tell your kids that. I'm having a really tough time right now, because you know what? They're going to come back to you and they're going to be able to articulate the same thing. Mom, Dad, I'm having a really tough time right now. This homework or this schoolwork is really getting to me. I really need to take a break. They will mirror your behavior. So you want to be the one that's mentoring for them the best way to navigate the challenge that's in that day, okay? And then get creative with the kids. When you're home all day with the kids, you can engage them in projects and chores and food shopping and cooking. You can use those as learning opportunities, teaching opportunities for your kids. How do you measure a cup of flour when we make the muffins for tomorrow's lunch? Taking them to the supermarket and looking at different types of produce, and maybe going online at some point and looking at the nutritional values to the foods that they're putting on their plate. You know, taking life lessons. These are lessons that can't be put into any workbook. So get creative. A couple of other things. Begin each day with an affirmation statement. And maybe you do this at the breakfast table, and you go around the breakfast table and you look at, you know, because we are so complex beings. Human beings are so complex, and we're so filled with such wonderful gifts that we give one another. Go around the table and say, you know, I'm pretty organized. I'm organized. I like to keep my books and my papers together, and I like to keep my closets neat. Well, that's an affirmation statement. Stay with that, you know, for the day. I have something good about me in my day. And then really own it, you know, let it be your go-to something when you start to feel, you know, challenged in the day. It could be that I'm a really fast runner for a child. Well, yeah, that child may be a really fast runner, and that could be something when they're feeling really, like, you know, pulled in many directions during their day. Well, they can just kind of go back to that positive affirmation. So again, be creative. Each family is different. Every member of the family is different, and all the affirmations are going to be different. End each day with a statement of thankfulness and gratitude. I am thankful for blank. I am grateful for blank, whatever happened in your day. Celebrate the small things that go on within the course of the day, and invite your kids to do the same thing. And by at the end of the day, going to bed at night, reflecting on some positive things and being grateful for it, it instills hope. So it's taking what could be a sour situation, and it's making a very sweet situation, okay? There's a couple of other things that you could do during the day with your kids in order to release some of the boredom and the isolation. And it's kind of like engaging in games with them. Simple games, like maybe again at lunchtime, you know, you're going to take, or it could be at breakfast. It could be any time during the day where you think that your children and your family members are going to be most engaged. Create a story together. Set a timer for 5 to 10 minutes, and go around your family group and let somebody each day pick a different topic. And then one person at a time would add a sentence to this story. Oh, the elephant was in the zoo and he had a friend, the monkey, right? And then son number 2 adds to it, and just let the story just flow for 5 to 10 minutes and just see where it goes. Because what it does is it gives this family unity and bonding a place for it to happen, to grow. And then becomes a lot of joy and a lot of silliness, because you're going to have one child that's going to be a little bit more serious and add more seriousness to the story. And then there's going to be another child who's going to add humor in their side of it. So it really becomes quite a really rich sharing for family. Again, it relieves boredom, it relieves isolation, because now you know that you're not in this alone. You're in this as a unit, right? Mm-hmm. Pass a glass filled with water around the group, and eyes open about 5 times, right? So it goes around the group. Now everybody closes their eyes and they pass the glass of water to one another without spilling it, to the best of their ability, right? And that builds trust amongst one another. And isn't that important to have within this family unit, this family dynamic that has to trust in one another to do right by one another in this situation of COVID-19? We're together. We have to trust in one another that we're going to be the best that we can be in this situation. So this passing the glass of water around with your eyes closed and trying not to spill it, and then pass it back the other way. It's really it's fun. Nobody's going to not spill it. It's going to happen. And then finally, and the final game that you can play is each day or every other day, or however you want to work this into your week, is to pick an animal, a particular type of animal, and everybody gets a piece of paper. And they take the piece of paper and they tear it into that animal's shape, okay? And then you just look at, say it's a horse. So you're just tearing it to, you have all different age levels and parents and what have you. And then you share what your horse looked like. And trust me, there's going to be a lot of laughter. Like, that is not a horse. That looks more like a cow or whatever, So when you asked me, the question was, what is one of the biggest things that parents and families are wrestling with, is this boredom and this isolation. So it's important to be creative in how you're spending your time together outside of the learning environment, and really finding ways and looking for ways to make it fun. Yeah.
Yeah, and I love the games that you were recommend. I was chuckling a little bit because I had this image of my son and my daughter. So my son's 6 and my daughter's 3. And my son is very analytical. So everything like has a place and straight lines, and he's going to be so good at math. And my daughter loves dressing up in costumes, but I saw them trying to pass the glass now. So now I feel like I'm going to have to try that.
Yeah, it'll make for a good story somewhere along the line. Remember when, so yeah, it's good.
And I love the idea of like creating these like simple games that you can do at home. You don't have to spend money or anything. You can tear paper, and you can create that strong connection that families may have been missing even before COVID. Because we get so busy with our lives. It may not be something that we've put a lot of attention into, and this is really an opportunity to do that.
Well, that's what I'm saying. COVID is an incredible time right now for families to do a reset, to really rein it in, reevaluate what's important to them, what's important to the parent in relationship to their kids, and really, kind of soul search it a little bit and say, maybe I haven't really been showing up as best as I could for my kids, with how much work I've been outside of the home and how much I've been running around and doing this, that, and the other thing. Now's the time to really just kind of sit still and and I say that, not literally, but it's a time to settle down and do a really great reset and a reconnection with yourself and your family members. I think it's an amazing opportunity.
Yeah. Great. I do have one more question for you.
Sure.
So through your coaching, you work with parents to develop conscious parenting, and I'd like to dive a little bit deeper into that, if that's okay.
Sure. And it's not, it's kind of hard to give an elevator speech to conscious parenting, because conscious parenting runs pretty deep. But basically, the term conscious means to be awake or to be aware, self-aware. So with that as the foundation, conscious parenting is really tuning into who you are and what makes you tick. What makes you do, and decide to show up in a certain way in certain situations. So in relationship to your children, because we're talking about parenting here, it's a way of letting your children almost take the lead. Not that you're giving them over, they're not going to rule the roost, but every relationship with yourself and relationship with your kids has a very unique dynamic, and there's no two that's alike. So it's not a how-to method of teaching your children, but it's a method that really allows you to look at who you are, who your child is, and how best to identify their needs, their wants, and meet those needs and wants in a way that they can feel that they've been heard, that they've been loved, that gives them a sense of security. It also is very important within this, and I mentioned it earlier, for parents to give themselves permission to not have it right all the time, and to know that there's an invitation to figure out how to better it, to admit when you're wrong to yourself, to admit when you're wrong to your kids, and tell them you're going to try harder. Every time that you show up in honesty with who you are inviting your kids to show up with honesty with who they are. And sometimes adjustments will need to be made. If you're overreactive, well, maybe you need to revisit what's the triggers that are causing you to be overreactive. What's the frustration? What's not happening in the way that you want? And how important is it to hang on to that at the expense of isolating your child or belittling your child? It's a very self-inquiry type of way of parenting. And when you do that, your kids, like if you articulate to them, I'm feeling really tired right now, and I just don't have the energy for whatever you're asking me to do. But if it's okay, can we, schedule to do it tomorrow, or can we do it an hour from now? So this way you're not discounting the value of what they're asking of you. You're saying it's important to me, but I can't show up for you right now, but I can show up for you later. Okay. So that it gives them value, and it gives you the time and the space that you need. So that's conscious parenting. That's like self-awareness. That's really being true to who you are, rather than pushing and saying, oh my goodness, she needs this and he needs that, and I have to get this done, and keeping yourself on that treadmill of the go, go, go. You're really self-aware, and you're saying, I can't, I'm not showing up. I'm being angry because I'm trying to get everything done all at the same time. So if you do continue on that path of pleasing everyone all the time and putting yourself last, you're going to wind up in burnout. And that's what happens with a lot of parents. So slowing down, giving yourself permission to slow down is a really big, big thing for parents. And that's where COVID is a real blessing, because you don't have a choice, right? So your influence on your children will be, they will slow down and they will start to articulate how they're feeling, and they will show up with more honesty in who they are, and they'll be able to control their emotions more readily and not reactive, because they'll understand what's behind what's making them react the way they are. Maybe they'll understand, oh my gosh, I'm hangry right now. I'm hangry. And you can use that word and teach them, I haven't eaten, I haven't slept, I've been doing homework all day, and now I'm feeling really out of sorts. Well, I'm hangry. And that says it all. Okay, let's do a reset. Let's get you something to eat, and let's settle back in, and we'll go back to whatever we were doing, and we'll move on from here. So it's basically respecting yourself and who you are, and inviting your kids to respect themselves and who they are. And in that, it can't help but trickle to the rest of the world, because then when your kids feel respected, then they can go out into the world and they can respect other people. You know what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
That does make sense.
So yeah.
That's a big premise of ASPCC too, is like when you can take care of like your home unit and give the kids tools they need to grow up to be successful adults. Like it starts in the home, and so those are really good tips to help them build up resiliency and trust in themselves and honor themselves. So I loved every second of that. Wow. I know I kept you waiting, but I was just hanging on every single word. So thank you so much for joining us today, Mary. And everyone, if you would like to connect with Mary, you can visit her website. It's inspiredparentcoach.com, or you can follow her on Facebook at Inspired Coach, and on Instagram at inspired_parent_coach. And I'll put the links in the comments. And to you, our listeners who have been called to make a difference in the world or right in your own home, we thank you so much for participating in this conversation. Okay. We'll see you next week. Bye.
Thanks so much for having me, Jackie.
Thank you, Mary.